Good morning. This is Charlie Hamilton with Fickett, Enty, Wagner & Castle Structural Engineers. Today we'll be talking about real-world design considerations for punching shear and flat plate slabs. So just a quick overview of what we're going to go through today in the presentation. First off, we're going to talk about some of the background information regarding punching shear itself, the general information on what punching shear failure is, how it develops. We're going to talk about some of the code models that are used specifically under ACI 318.14 for punching shear. These are different from code models used under other codes, so I'm going to be focusing today on 318.14. And then some of the issues that impact punching capacity. Then we'll go through some examples for consideration of openings and consideration of tolerance. We have, so for consideration of openings and consideration of tolerances during the examples. And then moving forward, we have just a quick summary of what we've covered in the presentation. So I'm not going to bore you by reading through the reference slides, but basically these two reference slides that I'm going to show you describe what I'm using as the reference basis. And I notice here that that the slide indicates that it has not been updated for IBC 2015. All of these bold references are the ones that were being used in the preparation of the presentation. I want to clarify that there is not, for the purposes of this presentation, there is no material difference between the issues discussed from the 2012 IBC and the 2015 IBC. So you'll see references as I'm going through the presentation. I apologize, I thought I had gotten all of those cleaned up, but the content remains the same between the 2012 and the 2015 IBC. These are some additional references. Again, I encourage people who are particularly interested in punching shear to do just a little bit of legwork on some of the issues that are coming up, so that you can see some of the background information. There's a lot of interesting research going on. So I want to talk just really briefly. I think a lot of the engineers will recognize references to the Princess Bride. So this is one that I've made before. The classic blunders. First, of course, from the Princess Bride: never get involved in the land war in Asia. Never go against the Sicilian when death is on the line. And I will propose a third classic blunder, which is to never underestimate the potential for punching shear problems. So as design engineers, we often will show, a typical detail that says, hey, contractor, you can put an opening up to a certain size at a minimum distance from our supports without actively coming to us and letting us know that you've added that opening. We as engineers have accounted for that. But sometimes we get stuck because then we get an RFI that says, hey, I really want to add a plumbing opening that runs down the face of this column, and is that going to be okay? Then we have an additional issue that will crop up, that we're very close to the edge of the slab, or we're within a tolerance of the slab edge. Now, a lot of these things can be considered when you're doing the design, and they should be, but oftentimes these are things that get overlooked. So I want to sort of talk about all of those characteristics as we're going along. So what is punching shear? We talk about it as shear. Really, it's a diagonal tension failure in the system. So whenever the shear transfer demand, the diagonal tension demand at a support or at a concentrated load exceeds the capacity of the slab to transfer that load, we see what we refer to as punching shear. So for example, what's happening is in this figure is not so much that the column is punching through the slab per se. The column sits still, obviously, and then the slab breaks away because the load that the slab is transferring into that column exceeds the ability of the slab to transfer it in. But conceptually, you could flip this diagram upside down and be talking about a point load from above. For example, when you go through ACI's design guides for ACI 318.14, and they talk about punching shear, one of the issues they bring up is punching shear in parking slabs. Now, to be honest, I've looked at the loads that the code prescribes, for example, for residential parking garages, I should say passenger vehicle parking garages, and the area that load is distributed over, and I have yet to actually encounter a condition where that punching shear actually controlled from that wheel load. However, you might have more of an issue in situations where you have high vehicle loads rather than what you would see in a, again, a passenger vehicle garage.